You're sitting at your kitchen table at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night, staring at a pile of bills that somehow multiplied since last week. Your paycheck hit your account 3 days ago, and already you're doing that mental math we all know too well. Rent is due in 6 days. Your car insurance payment comes out automatically on Friday. There's a credit card bill you've been avoiding that's quietly accruing interest while you pretend it doesn't exist. And somewhere in the back of your mind, there's this nagging voice asking a question you don't want to answer. How did I get here? You did everything right. You went to school. You paid attention in class. You memorized the quadratic formula, learned about the War of 1812, and you can probably still recite that mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. You graduated. You got a job. You're working hard, and yet here you are at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night, wondering why your bank account looks the same as it did 3 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe even a decade ago. Here's what nobody told you, and this might be the most expensive secret in American society. The education system that was supposed to prepare you for adult life didn't teach you a single useful thing about the one subject that affects every decision you'll ever make. Not one class on budgeting. Not one lesson on compound interest. Not one conversation about how credit cards actually work or why your credit score matters more than your GPA when you're trying to rent an apartment. You learned how to dissect a frog, but nobody showed you how to read a mortgage application. You can identify the parts of a cell, but you can't identify the hidden fees in your bank statement. And the really cruel part? This wasn't an accident. This wasn't an oversight. This is a system that was designed to produce consumers, not financially literate citizens who understand how money actually works. According to the most recent data, only half of American adults can demonstrate basic financial literacy. Let me say that again, because it's important. Half. That means if you're sitting in a room with 10 people right now, 5 of them have absolutely no clue what they're doing with their money. And honestly, that number is probably generous. The average American correctly answers just 48% of basic financial questions. We're not talking about complex investment strategies or tax optimization. We're talking about fundamental concepts like compound interest, inflation, and the difference between a stock and a bond. Most people are literally failing at the one subject that determines whether they'll build wealth or struggle paycheck to paycheck for the rest of their lives. My name is Tom, and I've spent years studying why some people seem to effortlessly build wealth while others work just as hard, sometimes even harder, and end up with nothing to show for it. What I've discovered is that the difference isn't intelligence. It's not about having rich parents or a 6-figure salary. The difference is financial literacy. It's understanding the rules of a game that nobody bothered to explain to you. And today, I'm going to teach you everything they should have covered in school, but never did. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly where you stand financially right now, how to create a realistic plan that actually works for your specific situation, and most importantly, how to start building real wealth, even if you're currently living paycheck to paycheck. We're going to cover budgeting that doesn't feel like torture, emergency funds that actually protect you, debt strategies that make mathematical sense, investing basics that won't put you to sleep, and even how to think about major financial decisions like buying a home. But here's what makes this different from every other financial advice video you've seen online. We're not going to pretend that everyone watching this makes $100,000 a year. We're not going to assume you have wealthy parents who can bail you out when things get tough. We're going to deal with real life, real budgets, and real challenges that actual people face every single day. So if you're tired of feeling confused about money, frustrated by conflicting advice, or stressed about your financial future, stick around, because we're about to change that. And if this information helps you take control of your finances, hit that like button and subscribe, because your future self will thank you for it. Let's start with something that might make you uncomfortable, but is absolutely essential. Understanding your financial reality right now. Most people have no idea where they actually stand financially. They have a vague sense that things could be better. They know they should probably be saving more. But when it comes to actual numbers, they're operating on guesswork and anxiety. That's like trying to drive to a destination you've never been to without knowing your starting point or having a map. You might eventually get there through sheer luck, but more likely, you'll waste years going in circles. Your financial now consists of 3 critical numbers that paint the complete picture of your financial health. The first number is your net worth. This is everything you own minus everything you owe. The second number is your monthly cash flow. This is your income minus your expenses, and it tells you whether you're moving forward or backward each month. The third number is your financial runway. This is how long you could survive if your income disappeared tomorrow. Let's start with net worth, because this single number tells you more about your financial progress than anything else. Add up the value of everything you own: your checking account, your savings account, any retirement accounts, your car, if you own it, your home, if you own that, any investments, even that small brokerage account you opened 3 years ago and forgot about. Now subtract everything you owe: credit card debt, student loans, car payments, mortgage, that money you borrowed from your brother last Thanksgiving and keep meaning to pay back. The number you get is your net worth, and here's what might surprise you about where that number puts you. According to the Federal Reserve, the median net worth for American households under 35 is less than $39,000. If you're between 35 and 44, the median jumps to around $130,000. For those 45 to 54, it's approximately $240,000. Now, median means half of people have more and half have less. So, if you calculated your net worth and felt discouraged by the result, you're probably not alone. But the point of knowing this number isn't to feel good or bad about it. The point is to establish a clear starting point so you can measure your progress going forward. But net worth only tells part of the story. Your monthly cash flow reveals whether you're actually making progress or just treading water. Track every dollar that comes in and every dollar that goes out for at least 1 full month. I know this sounds tedious. I know you'd rather do almost anything else. But this single exercise will teach you more about your actual spending habits than years of vague financial anxiety ever could. Your income side is usually straightforward. Your salary, any side hustle money, investment returns, whatever your total monthly take-home actually is. The expense side is where most people get shocked. Housing, transportation, food, utilities, insurance, debt payments, subscriptions, entertainment, that streaming service you forgot you signed up for, those random Amazon purchases that seem necessary at 2 in the morning. Add it all up and subtract your total expenses from your total income. If the number is positive, congratulations. You have surplus cash flow. This is money that could be building your future instead of just maintaining your present. If the number is negative, you're spending more than you earn, which explains why your credit card balances keep growing despite your best intentions. If it's exactly 0, you're living paycheck to paycheck with no buffer for emergencies and no path to building wealth. Here's why understanding your cash flow matters so much. Let's say, after doing this exercise, you discover you have $300 in surplus cash flow each month. That might not sound like much. You might think, what can $300 really do? But here's the math that nobody in school ever taught you. If you invested that $300 every single month at an average return of 8%, which is historically reasonable for the stock market, in 30 years, you'd have over $440,000. Not because you're a financial genius. Not because you got lucky with some investment tip. Just because you understood your cash flow and put that surplus to work consistently over time. Your financial runway is the third piece of this puzzle, and it's probably the most important for your peace of mind. Take your monthly expenses, the number you calculated above, and divide it into your total liquid savings. Liquid savings means money you can access quickly without penalties. Your checking account, your regular savings account, a money market account. Retirement accounts don't count here because you'd face penalties for early withdrawal. That certificate of deposit that doesn't mature for 2 years doesn't count either. If your monthly expenses are $3,000 and you have $9,000 in liquid savings, your financial runway is 3 months. That means if you lost your income tomorrow, you could survive for 3 months before you'd be in serious trouble. Most financial experts recommend a runway of 3 to 6 months, but honestly, even having 1 month puts you ahead of a huge percentage of Americans who have essentially nothing saved for emergencies. Understanding these 3 numbers gives you complete clarity about where you're starting from. And once you know where you're starting, You can create a plan that actually makes sense for your specific situation. Now that you know your financial reality, let's talk about something the education system completely failed to teach you: the actual mechanics of building wealth. And I'm going to share with you what I call the uncomfortable truth about money that changes everything once you understand it. Most people believe that building wealth is about earning more money. If I just got that promotion, if I just landed that better job, if I just had a higher salary, then I'd finally be able to get ahead financially. Here's the uncomfortable truth: earning more money almost never solves financial problems. The data is overwhelming on this point. Studies consistently show that as income increases, spending increases at almost exactly the same rate. This phenomenon has a name. It's called lifestyle creep, and it destroys financial futures with ruthless efficiency. Someone earning $50,000 a year struggles to save anything. They get a promotion to $65,000, and they upgrade their apartment, buy a nicer car, eat out more often, and somehow still struggle to save anything. They get another promotion to $85,000, and the pattern repeats: nicer apartment, nicer car, more expensive habits. And they're still living paycheck to paycheck, just at a higher income level. This is why you see people earning six figures who are one missed paycheck away from financial disaster. The income wasn't the problem. The financial literacy was the problem. They never learned the fundamental principle that determines whether someone builds wealth or stays broke. It's not about how much you earn. It's about the gap between what you earn and what you spend. Consider someone earning $200,000 a year who spends $195,000. They have $5,000 in annual surplus. Now consider someone earning $60,000 a year who spends $45,000. They have $15,000 in annual surplus. Who's building wealth faster? The person earning $60,000 by a factor of 3. This is the math that school never taught you. This is the uncomfortable truth that the consumption-based economy doesn't want you to understand. Your income is almost irrelevant to wealth building compared to your savings rate. The Chinese understand this better than almost any other culture on earth. Chinese households save an average of 40 to 50% of their income. Compare that to the American savings rate, which hovers around 4 to 5%. The difference isn't that Chinese families earn more money. Many earn significantly less than their American counterparts. The difference is that they've internalized a fundamentally different relationship with money. They understand that every dollar saved today is a dollar that can work for them tomorrow. They prioritize financial security over the appearance of financial success. Here's what this looks like practically. Instead of asking, "Can I afford the monthly payment on this car?" they ask, "What is the total cost of ownership over time, and is this the best use of these dollars?" Instead of financing a car at 6% interest for 6 years, they save up and buy a reliable used vehicle with cash. They don't pay $1 in interest. They don't have a monthly payment eating into their cash flow, and the money they would have spent on that car payment goes into investments that grow over time. This is the first lesson they should have taught you in school. Wealth building isn't about earning more. It's about expanding the gap between your income and your expenses, and then putting that gap to work through the power of compound interest. Speaking of compound interest, let's talk about the most powerful wealth-building force on the planet and why understanding it changes everything about how you think about money. Albert Einstein supposedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Whether he actually said that or not is debatable, but the sentiment is absolutely correct. Compound interest is the reason some people build massive wealth over time, while others work their entire lives and end up with nothing. And the beautiful thing is that it doesn't require you to be smart, lucky, or wealthy to begin with. It just requires you to understand the math and act accordingly. Here's how compound interest works in simple terms. You invest some money. That money earns a return. Now you have more money. That larger amount earns a return. Now you have even more money. And the cycle continues, with your money growing faster and faster over time because you're earning returns on your returns. It sounds simple, but the implications are profound and honestly a little mind-blowing when you see the actual numbers. Let me show you with a real example. Say you decide to invest $500 every month. That's $6,000 per year. Not nothing, but also not impossible for most working adults. We're talking about what many people spend on coffee, takeout, and impulse purchases without even thinking about it. Assuming your investments earn an average return of 8% annually, which is actually conservative compared to historical stock market performance. Here's what happens over time. It takes approximately 12 years of consistent monthly contributions to reach your first $100,000. 12 years might sound like forever when you're just starting out, but think about it this way. 12 years ago, what were you doing? Time passes, whether you're building wealth or not. During those first 12 years, most of the money in your account comes directly from your contributions. You're doing the heavy lifting. Out of that $100,000, roughly $72,000 came from what you put in, while about $28,000 came from investment returns. Not life-changing, but a solid foundation. Here's where most people make a critical mistake. They look at these early numbers and get discouraged. They think the process is too slow, the returns don't seem impressive, and they give up or stop contributing. What they don't realize is that they've just completed the hardest part of the entire journey. They've built the foundation that will support everything that comes next, because from this point forward, compound interest starts working exponentially harder for you. The next milestone is $200,000, and here's the part that changes how you think about wealth building. It only takes about 6 more years to double that $100,000. Let me repeat that because it matters. 12 years to go from $0 to $100,000, but only 6 additional years to double it. You're now 18 years into your journey with $200,000. At this point, compound interest is really starting to flex. Of that $200,000, you've personally contributed about $108,000. The other $92,000 is pure investment growth. Your money is doing nearly as much work as you are. But here's the part that will blow your mind. Even though you've only reached $200,000, you're actually more than halfway to becoming a millionaire. Not 20% of the way there, more than halfway. This is because compound interest is exponential, not linear. The next $200,000 takes only 5 more years. Now you're at $400,000 after 23 years. The next $200,000 takes about 4 years. Now you're at $600,000 after 27 years. And the final push to $1 million? About 3 more years. At the 30-year mark, you've crossed into 7-figure territory. Here's the math that should change how you think about every financial decision you make. Over those 30 years, you personally contributed about $180,000 through your monthly investments, but your account balance is over $1 million. That means more than 80% of your wealth came from compound growth, not from your own contributions. This is the power that school never taught you about. This is why time is the most valuable asset you have when it comes to building wealth. And this is why every year you delay starting is worth so much more than just that year's contributions. The key insight here is that compound interest is most powerful in the later years. The journey from $0 to $100,000 is brutal. It takes discipline and patience when the results seem minimal. But once you cross certain thresholds, momentum takes over in a way that feels almost magical. The people who understand this start early and stay consistent. The people who don't understand it keep waiting for the right time to start investing. And that right time never comes. Now let's talk about the practical steps you need to take to build this kind of wealth. Starting with the foundation that makes everything else possible. The first thing you need to master is something that sounds boring, but is actually the key to financial freedom: budgeting. And I'm not talking about the kind of budgeting where you track every penny and feel guilty every time you buy a coffee. That approach doesn't work for most people because it treats budgeting as deprivation rather than empowerment. Let me show you a better way. The 503020 framework is the simplest budgeting system that actually works in real life. Here's how it breaks down. 50% of your after-tax income goes to needs. These are the non-negotiables: housing, utilities, groceries, insurance, minimum debt payments, and transportation to work. 30% goes to wants. This is the stuff that makes life enjoyable: dining out, entertainment, hobbies, that Netflix subscription, clothes that aren't strictly necessary but make you feel good. 20% goes to savings and extra debt payments. This is your wealth building engine. But here's the uncomfortable truth about this framework. Most Americans are spending way more than 50% on needs alone. Housing costs have skyrocketed. Healthcare is absurdly expensive, and when your needs consume 60 or 70% of your income, that doesn't leave much room for wants or savings. So what do? You have two options. Either increase income or decrease expenses. The beautiful thing about the 50-30-20 framework is that it shows you exactly where to focus. If your needs are eating up too much of your budget, that's where you attack first. Can you refinance your rent by moving somewhere cheaper? Can you reduce transportation costs by downsizing your car or using public transit? Can you lower your phone bill or insurance premiums by shopping around? Every percentage point you can shift, from needs to savings, has a massive impact over time. Reducing your needs from 60% to 55% might not sound like much, but that 5% freed up for savings could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars in retirement. The second foundation is something I call the financial emergency runway. And it's the thing that separates people who build wealth from people who keep getting knocked back to zero every time life throws them a curveball. Here's what happens without an emergency fund. You're doing great. You're saving money, maybe even investing a little. Then your car breaks down and needs $1,500 in repairs. You don't have the cash, so you put it on a credit card. Now you're paying 22% interest on that repair while trying to get back to your savings plan. Before you've paid off that credit card, your refrigerator dies. Another $800 on the card. Then you get sick and miss a week of work. The emergencies compound just like interest does, except in the wrong direction. With an emergency fund, that same scenario plays out completely differently. Car breaks down, you pay cash from your emergency fund. Annoying, but not financially devastating. You rebuild the fund over the next few months. Refrigerator dies, same thing. Cash from the fund, rebuild over time. You get sick, your emergency fund covers the gap. At no point do you go into high-interest debt. At no point do you derail your wealth-building progress. The emergency fund acts as a shock absorber that keeps life's inevitable problems from destroying your financial momentum. How much should you have? The standard advice is 3 to 6 months of expenses. But let me be honest with you. If you're starting from zero, that number can feel impossible. So here's what I suggest. Start with a $1,000 mini emergency fund. This won't cover everything, but it will handle most common emergencies without sending you into credit card debt. Once you have that, work toward 1 month of expenses, then 2 months, then 3. Build it gradually, while you're also paying down debt and starting to invest. The key is to keep this money liquid and accessible, but not too accessible. A separate high-yield savings account works perfectly. You can get the money within a day or two if you really need it, but it's not sitting in your checking account where it might get spent on something that's not actually an emergency. Now let's address something that keeps millions of Americans trapped in financial quicksand. Debt. Specifically, let's talk about the difference between debt that destroys wealth and debt that can actually build it. Most people think all debt is bad. That's not quite right. What's true is that consumer debt, the kind of debt you take on to buy things that lose value, is almost always wealth-destroying. Credit card debt is the most obvious example. The average credit card interest rate is currently around 20 to 24%. Think about what that means. If you have $10,000 in credit card debt and only make minimum payments, you'll end up paying close to $13,000 in interest alone over the years it takes to pay it off. That's money that could have been building your wealth instead of building the bank's profits. Car loans are another form of consumer debt that most people don't think critically about. You finance a new car for $35,000 at 7% interest over 6 years? By the time you've paid it off, you've spent over $42,000 on a vehicle that's now worth maybe $12,000. You paid $7,000 in interest for the privilege of owning something that lost 2/3 of its value. This is wealth destruction in slow motion, and it's so normalized in our society that we don't even question it. The strategy for eliminating this kind of debt is straightforward, even if it's not easy. List all your debts from highest interest rate to lowest. Make minimum payments on everything, then throw every extra dollar at the debt with the highest interest rate. This is called the debt avalanche method, and mathematically it's the fastest way to become debt-free. Some people prefer the debt snowball method, where you pay off the smallest balances first, regardless of interest rate. The argument is that the psychological wins of eliminating debts keeps you motivated. That's valid. Personal finance is personal, and if the snowball method keeps you engaged, while the avalanche method would make you give up, then the snowball method is better for you. But understand that you're paying a mathematical price for those psychological benefits. Here's the exception to the pay off debt first rule, and this is important. If your employer offers matching contributions to a retirement plan, contribute enough to get the full match even before you finish paying off high-interest debt. I know that sounds counterintuitive, so let me explain the math. An employer match is essentially a guaranteed 100% return on your investment, up to the match limit. If your employer matches 50 cents on the dollar, up to 6% of your salary, and you earn $50,000, that means contributing $3,000 per year gets you an additional $1,500 from your employer. That's free money. Even if you're paying 22% interest on credit card debt, a 100% immediate return beats paying down that debt first. It's like finding a $100 bill on the ground while you're walking to pay off a debt. You pick up the $100. Then you pay the debt. Now let's talk about the thing that actually builds long-term wealth: investing. And let me start by dismantling some myths that keep people on the sidelines when they should be in the game. Myth number 1. You need a lot of money to start investing. This was true decades ago, when you needed thousands of dollars to open a brokerage account and paid significant commissions on every trade. Today, you can start investing with as little as $1 through various apps and brokerages. The barrier to entry has essentially disappeared. Myth number 2. You need to be smart or financially sophisticated to invest successfully. The data on this is overwhelming and honestly a little embarrassing for the financial industry. The vast majority of professional fund managers, people who get paid millions of dollars to pick investments, fail to beat simple index funds over the long term. If the professionals can't do it consistently, what makes you think you need to try? Myth number 3. Investing is basically gambling. This one drives me crazy because it reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of what investing actually is. When you buy a stock, you're buying partial ownership in a real business that makes real products or provides real services. When you buy an index fund, you're buying partial ownership in hundreds or thousands of these businesses. You're betting on human innovation, productivity, and economic growth continuing over time. That's not gambling. That's participating in the engine of wealth creation that has lifted billions of people out of poverty over the last century. So what should you actually invest in? Here's the simple answer that has proven more effective than almost any sophisticated strategy: low-cost index funds. An index fund is a type of investment that holds all the stocks in a particular market index. For example, an S&P 500 index fund holds shares in the 500 largest American companies. When you buy this fund, you're essentially buying a tiny piece of Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and 496 other major companies all at once. Why is this approach so effective? 3 reasons. First, diversification. You're not betting on any single company succeeding. If one company fails, you barely notice because you own pieces of hundreds of others. Second, low costs. Index funds have extremely low fees because they don't require expensive managers making decisions. Those savings compound over decades into massive differences in your returns. Third, consistency. The S&P 500 has averaged roughly 10% annual returns over the long term. Some years are up 30%, some years are down 20%. But over decades, that 10% average holds remarkably steady. Warren Buffett, arguably the greatest investor of all time, has repeatedly said that most people should simply invest in low-cost index funds. He even made $1 million bet that an S&P 500 index fund would outperform a collection of hedge funds over 10 years. He won that bet easily. If it's good enough for Warren Buffett, it's probably good enough for you. The practical implementation is simple. If you have access to a 401k or similar retirement account through your employer, that's usually the best place to start, especially if there's an employer match. If you don't have access to an employer plan, or you've maxed out your contributions there, open a Roth IRA. You can contribute up to $7,000 per year in 2024, and the money grows completely tax-free. After that, a regular taxable brokerage account works perfectly fine. In all these accounts, look for a low-cost S&P 500 index fund or a total stock market index fund. The expense ratio should be 0.1% or less. Set up automatic contributions so the money moves from your checking account to your investments without you having to think about it every month. Then leave it alone. Don't check it every day. Don't panic when the market drops. Just keep contributing consistently and let compound interest do its thing over decades. Now I want to address something that nobody wants to talk about, but that affects your financial decisions every single day. The psychology of money. School teaches you that financial decisions are mathematical. You calculate the numbers, you make the optimal choice. End of story. This is completely wrong. Financial decisions are emotional, and understanding your money psychology might matter more than understanding compound interest. Some people are natural spenders who get genuine emotional satisfaction from buying things. Others are natural savers who feel anxiety every time they spend money, even on things they need. Some people use money to feel secure. Others use it to gain approval or status. These psychological patterns drive your behavior in ways that spreadsheets never capture. This is why someone can know intellectually that they should save for retirement but still buy a new car they can't afford. This is why someone can read all the right books about personal finance and still end up in credit card debt. The intellectual knowledge doesn't override the emotional programming. The first step to mastering your money psychology is simply becoming aware of your patterns. Do you spend more when you're stressed? Many people do. It's called retail therapy, and it's a real phenomenon. Do you avoid looking at your account balances because seeing the numbers makes you anxious? That avoidance often makes problems worse. Do you feel like you deserve to spend money after working hard, even when your financial situation doesn't support that spending? That sense of deserving can destroy budgets. Once you're aware of your patterns, you can create systems that work with your psychology instead of against it. If you're a natural spender, automate your savings so the money moves before you have a chance to spend it. You can't spend what you never see. If you're a natural saver to the point of anxiety, give yourself explicit permission to spend a certain amount guilt-free each month. That fun money category in your budget isn't optional. It's necessary for psychological sustainability. The people who build the most wealth aren't necessarily the ones with the highest incomes or the most financial knowledge. They're often the ones who understand their own psychology and design systems that make wealth building automatic regardless of how they're feeling on any given day. Let me pause here and ask you something. Based on everything we've discussed so far, where do you think you are in your financial journey? Are you still struggling to understand the basics of budgeting and debt? Are you past that stage but unsure how to start investing? Or are you already investing but wondering if you're doing it right? Here's what I'd love for you to do. In the comments below, let me know which of these topics resonated most with you. Was it the budgeting framework, the emergency fund concept, the compound interest math, or maybe the psychology of money section? Your feedback helps me create content that's actually useful for where you are in your journey, and reading through the comments often gives me ideas for future videos that address specific questions people have. Now, let's move into some more advanced territory and talk about decisions that can make or break your financial future. Major purchases, taxes, and protecting what you build. The biggest purchase most people ever make is a home. And the financial advice around homeownership is some of the most misleading in existence. You've probably heard some version of this your entire life. Renting is throwing money away. You should buy a house as soon as possible. Homeownership is the path to wealth. Here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody in the real estate industry wants you to understand. When you buy a house, you're not just paying the purchase price. You're paying mortgage interest, which over 30 years can equal or exceed the price of the house itself. You're paying property taxes, typically 1 to 2% of your home's value every year. You're paying homeowners insurance. You're paying for maintenance and repairs, which typically run 1 to 2% of the home's value annually. You're paying the opportunity cost of your down payment, which is money that could be invested in the stock market instead. Let me run through a simplified example to illustrate. Someone buys a $400,000 house with a 20% down payment, so $80,000 down, and a $320,000 mortgage. Over 30 years at a 7% interest rate, their total mortgage payments equal about $766,000. Add in property taxes at 1.5%, roughly $180,000 over 30 years. Add insurance at $2,400 per year, another $72,000. Add maintenance at 1% of home value, roughly $120,000. Total cost of homeownership over 30 years, approximately $1,138,000 plus the $80,000 down payment. Now, if that same person rented a comparable place for $2,000 per month and invested the difference between rent and the total cost of homeownership, including investing that $80,000 down payment from day one, they'd likely end up with more wealth after 30 years, especially if home prices in their area don't appreciate significantly. I'm not saying you should never buy a home. Homeownership has real benefits beyond pure financial return: stability, customization, pride of ownership, community roots. But I am saying you should run the actual numbers for your specific situation rather than assuming buying is always better because that's what everyone says. Sometimes buying makes financial sense. Sometimes renting and investing the difference makes more sense. The answer depends on your local housing market, how long you plan to stay, and what returns you could get by investing elsewhere. Now let's talk about something that scares most people, but is essential to understand: taxes. The wealthy don't get wealthy just by earning more money. They get wealthy by understanding how the tax system actually works and structuring their finances accordingly. The first thing to understand is that not all income is taxed the same way. Earned income, the money you get from your job, is taxed at the highest rates. If you're in the 22% federal tax bracket, you might pay 22% plus state income tax plus Social Security and Medicare taxes on every additional dollar you earn from working. But investment income often gets preferential treatment. Long-term capital gains, the profit you make from selling an investment you've held for more than a year, are taxed at lower rates, often just 15% for most people. Qualified dividends get the same favorable treatment. This is why wealthy people often talk about making their money work for them. It's not just that investment returns are passive. It's that investment income is taxed more favorably than labor income. The system is literally designed to reward people who have capital to invest over people who only have their labor to sell. The second thing to understand is the power of tax-advantaged accounts. When you contribute to a traditional 401k or IRA, that money reduces your taxable income today. If you're in the 22% bracket and contribute $10,000, you save $2,200 in taxes this year. The money then grows tax-deferred for decades. You don't pay any taxes on dividends or capital gains along the way. You only pay taxes when you withdraw the money in retirement, hopefully at a lower tax rate. Roth accounts work in reverse. You contribute money you've already paid taxes on, but it grows completely tax-free forever. Withdrawals in retirement are tax-free if you're young and in a low tax bracket now. Roth often makes more sense because you're paying taxes at a low rate in exchange for tax-free growth for decades. The contribution limits for these accounts aren't suggestions. They're opportunities that expire every year. If you don't max out your 401k this year, you can't go back and contribute more next year to make up for it. That lost contribution space is gone forever, along with decades of tax-advantaged growth. Let me share a quick example that illustrates how this works in practice. Someone contributing $500 per month to a tax-advantaged retirement account versus a regular taxable account, both earning 8% annually over 30 years. In the tax-advantaged account, they end up with roughly $745,000. In the taxable account, after paying taxes on dividends and capital gains along the way, they might end up with closer to $600,000. That's a $145,000 difference, and it comes purely from understanding how the tax system works. Now let's talk about protecting the wealth you build, because accumulation means nothing if you can't keep it. The first layer of protection is insurance. And most people are either dramatically overinsured or dramatically underinsured with nothing in between. Let me give you a framework for thinking about this. Insurance exists to protect against catastrophic losses that you couldn't afford to cover yourself. Car insurance protects you if you cause an accident that injures someone and they sue you for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Health insurance protects you if you get cancer and the treatment costs $500,000. Homeowners or renters insurance protects you if your house burns down or someone slips on your property and sues. What insurance is not good for is covering small, predictable expenses. Extended warranties on electronics, usually a waste of money. The store's betting that you won't use it, and they're usually right. Credit card travel insurance? The coverage is typically so limited it's barely worth the premium. Insurance on your cell phone? Just save the money and pay for repairs or replacement yourself. The general rule is this: insure against things that would financially devastate you. Self-insure against things you could cover out of your emergency fund without derailing your life. This approach typically results in higher deductibles and lower premiums, which saves you money over time. The second layer of protection is diversification, and this applies to more than just your investment portfolio. Don't put all your eggs in one basket is cliched advice, because it's true. Don't have all your savings in one bank. Don't have all your investments in one company or one sector. Don't have all your income dependent on one employer. During the 2008 financial crisis, I remember hearing stories about employees at major companies who not only lost their jobs when the company struggled, but also lost most of their retirement savings because their 401k was invested entirely in company stock. They violated every principle of diversification by having their income, their savings, and their retirement all tied to a single company's success. When that company failed, they lost everything. Spread your risk. Different banks, different types of accounts, different asset classes in your investments, different potential income sources, if you can develop them. This doesn't guarantee you'll never face financial hardship, but it dramatically reduces the chances that any single event could wipe you out completely.
Let me bring this all together with a simple framework you can use to guide your financial decisions going forward. I call it the financial priority ladder, and it gives you a clear order of operations for every dollar that comes into your hands. Think of it as a GPS for your money that tells you exactly what to do next, no matter where you are in your financial journey. Step 1 on the ladder: cover your basic needs. Before anything else, make sure you have food on the table, a roof over your head, utilities running, and transportation to get to work. If your income doesn't cover these absolute basics, that's a crisis situation requiring immediate and urgent action. Whether that means increasing your income through a side hustle, decreasing your housing costs by moving somewhere cheaper, or some combination of both, you need to solve this problem before you can make progress on anything else. Basic survival comes first. Everything else has to wait. Step 2. Make minimum debt payments on everything you owe. Falling behind on debt payments destroys your credit score, which affects everything from future interest rates to your ability to rent an apartment. Some employers even check credit as part of their hiring process. So missed payments can hurt your career. The cost of a missed payment, in terms of your credit score and late fees, is far greater than any benefit from delaying. Set up auto pay for at least the minimum payment on every single account you have. This is absolutely non-negotiable and should be done immediately. Step 3. Get the full employer match on any retirement plan you have access to. This is literally free money sitting on the table waiting for you to pick it up. If your employer matches 50 cents on every dollar up to 6% of your salary, that's an instant 50% return on your money. No investment can beat that guaranteed return. Even if you're paying off high-interest debt, a guaranteed 100% return from employer matching beats paying down that debt first. It's like finding a $100 bill on the ground while walking to pay off a debt. You pick it up first, then you continue paying your debt. Step 4. Build your emergency fund. This is your financial shock absorber that keeps life's inevitable problems from derailing your entire financial progress. Without this cushion, one unexpected car repair or medical bill can send you spiraling back into debt. Start with $1,000 as a mini emergency fund that can handle most common emergencies without reaching for a credit card. Once you have that $1,000, work toward 1 month of expenses, then 2 months, then 3, then eventually 6 months. Build it gradually while you're also tackling other financial priorities. Step 5. Pay off high-interest debt aggressively. Credit cards, personal loans, anything charging you more than about 8% interest needs to go. Use the debt avalanche method, paying off the highest interest rate first for maximum mathematical efficiency. The guaranteed return from eliminating a 22% credit card balance beats what you'd likely earn investing. Every dollar you throw at this debt is a dollar that stops working against you and starts working for you. The psychological relief of watching those balances drop to zero is just a bonus on top of the mathematical benefits. Step 6. Max out your tax-advantaged retirement accounts. Your 401k, IRA, and HSA, if you're eligible. These accounts provide significant tax benefits that compound over decades into massive differences in your final wealth. The contribution limits for these accounts aren't suggestions. They're opportunities that expire every year. If you don't max out your 401k this year, you can't go back and contribute more next year to make up for it. That lost contribution space is gone forever, along with decades of tax-advantaged growth that could have changed your retirement. Step 7. Invest in a taxable brokerage account using the same low-cost index fund approach we discussed earlier. Once you've maximized all your tax-advantaged space, continue building wealth in regular taxable accounts. The principles remain the same: low costs, broad diversification, and consistent contributions. Step 8. Consider other goals like saving for a house, down payment, funding education, or building capital for entrepreneurial ventures. These goals come after your financial foundation is solid and secure. Don't skip the earlier steps to chase these goals prematurely. This ladder gives you a clear answer to the question, what should I do with my next dollar? At any stage of your financial journey, work your way up the rungs, and if something knocks you back down, you know exactly where to focus your energy to climb back up. Now, let's talk about something that controls so much of your financial life that you probably don't fully understand: your credit score. This 3-digit number affects far more than you realize, and most people have no idea how it's calculated or how to optimize it. Your credit score is essentially your financial reputation reduced to a single number between 300 and 850. It affects the interest rate you pay on mortgages, car loans, and credit cards. It affects whether landlords will rent to you. It sometimes even affects whether you can get a job. Payment history is the biggest factor, accounting for about 35% of your score. This is simply whether you pay your bills on time, every time, without exception. Even one missed payment can drop your score significantly, and that damage lasts for years on your credit report. The solution is simple but critical. Never miss a payment. Set up autopay for at least the minimum payment on every account you have. The cost of a missed payment in terms of credit damage and late fees far exceeds any benefit from delaying payment. Credit utilization is the second biggest factor at about 30% of your score. This is how much of your available credit you're actually using. If you have a credit card with a $10,000 limit and you're carrying a $5,000 balance, your utilization is 50%, which is way too high. Ideal utilization is below 30%, and below 10% is even better for your score. If your utilization is high, pay down balances or request credit limit increases to improve the ratio without changing your spending. Length of credit history accounts for about 15%. Older accounts are better because they show a longer track record of responsible credit use. This is why you should generally keep your oldest credit cards open, even if you don't use them much. Closing old accounts hurts your average account age. Credit mix is about 10% of your score. Having different types of credit like credit cards, installment loans, and mortgages shows you can handle various forms of debt responsibly. Don't take on debt you don't need just for mix, but over time, variety helps your score. New credit inquiries are the final 10%. Every time you apply for credit, there's a hard inquiry on your report that temporarily drops your score a few points. Multiple inquiries in a short period can add up, so don't apply for a bunch of credit cards at once unless you have a specific strategic reason. Once you understand these 5 components, optimization becomes straightforward. Pay everything on time. Keep utilization low. Don't close old accounts. Only apply for new credit when you actually need it. Follow these rules consistently, and your score will take care of itself over time. Now, let me bring us back to the big picture, because it's easy to get lost in all these details and lose sight of why any of this matters. Financial literacy is about freedom. It's about having options in life that you wouldn't otherwise have. It's about designing your life instead of just surviving it. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, every single decision is constrained by financial necessity. You can't leave a job you hate because you desperately need this month's paycheck. You can't take time off to care for a sick family member because you can't afford unpaid leave. You can't move to a city with better opportunities because you don't have money for the move. When you've built even a modest amount of financial security, everything changes. You can negotiate harder for a raise because you're not desperate. You can walk away from a bad situation because you have a cushion to land on. You can take calculated risks on new opportunities because failure won't mean total disaster. You can say no to things that don't serve you and yes to things that align with your values. Financial security gives you the power to design your life according to your own priorities, instead of being controlled by financial fear. This is why financial literacy matters so much more than school ever taught us. It's not about getting rich for the sake of having a big number in some account somewhere. It's about having enough that money stops being the primary constraint on every decision you make. The system was designed to keep you financially illiterate because financially illiterate people are easier to sell to, easier to profit from, and easier to keep running on the treadmill of earning and spending without ever building anything lasting. But here's the thing about systems: they only work if you don't understand them. Once you see how the game is played, once you understand the rules that nobody taught you, you can start playing by your own rules. Rules that prioritize your freedom over someone else's profits. Everything I've shared with you today is information that wealthy families have been passing down to their children for generations. It's not secret. It's not complicated. It's just not taught in schools. And now you have it too. Your financial situation today, whatever it is, doesn't determine your financial future. Your understanding does. Your actions do. Your consistency does. And now you have the knowledge to make different choices than the ones that got you here. Here's what I want you to do right now, before you close this video, before you get distracted by whatever's next. Take one action. Just one. Maybe it's calculating your net worth for the first time. Maybe it's setting up an automatic transfer to savings. Maybe it's checking if you're getting your full employer match on your 401k. Maybe it's opening that IRA you've been thinking about for months. The specific action matters less than the act of taking it. Because action creates momentum, and momentum creates habits, and habits create your financial future. But before you go, there's something else I need to share with you that ties everything together. Something that took me years to fully understand, and that I wish someone had explained to me when I was just starting out on this journey. The financial industry wants you to believe that wealth building is complicated. They want you to think you need sophisticated strategies, expensive advisors, and complex products to succeed financially. This belief serves their interests because complicated means they can charge you fees and keep you dependent on their expertise. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The fundamentals of building wealth are remarkably simple. Not easy, but simple. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference consistently in low-cost index funds. Do this for decades without stopping or second-guessing yourself. That's the entire strategy. That's the formula that has created more millionaires than any complex scheme, hot stock tip, or sophisticated hedge fund strategy ever has. The formula isn't hidden. It's just boring, so nobody talks about it. But boring works. The difficulty isn't in understanding what to do. The difficulty is in actually doing it consistently when everyone around you is buying new cars, taking expensive vacations, and upgrading their lifestyle every time they get a raise. The difficulty is staying the course when the market drops and every instinct tells you to sell. There's a famous study of investors who had accounts at Fidelity, one of the largest investment companies in the world. Researchers wanted to know which accounts performed best over time. The answer surprised everyone who heard about it. The best performing accounts belonged to people who were either dead or had completely forgotten they had the accounts at all. These investors did absolutely nothing with their money. They didn't try to time the market. They didn't switch to whatever sector was hot that year. They didn't panic and sell during downturns. They just left their money alone and let it grow undisturbed for years and decades. The lesson here is profound and might be the most important thing I tell you today. The biggest threat to your long-term wealth isn't picking the wrong investments. It's your own behavior. This is exactly why automation is so powerful for building wealth. When you set up automatic contributions to your investment accounts, you remove the decision-making from the process entirely. The money moves every single month, whether you're feeling optimistic or pessimistic about the market. Now I want to talk about something that most financial education completely ignores. The relationship between your career and your wealth building. Your career is your primary wealth building engine. Especially in your early years before your investments have grown large enough to generate significant returns on their own. Studies show that people who negotiate their starting salary can earn over $1 million more over the course of their career compared to people who just accept the first offer. One conversation lasting maybe 15 minutes that most people are too nervous to have can literally be worth $1 million over a lifetime. Know what the market pays for your role and your experience level. Sites like Glassdoor and PayScale give you this information for free. Come to negotiations with specific numbers based on market data, not vague requests for more. Think strategically about your career trajectory over the long term. Let me shift to talking about something that can devastate your finances if you're not prepared. Major life transitions. Getting married has enormous financial implications that most couples never discuss before the wedding. Money is one of the leading causes of divorce, not because couples don't have enough, but because they have fundamentally different relationships with it. Have the money conversation early and often with your partner. What are your financial goals? How do you feel about debt? Do you combine finances or keep them separate? There are no wrong answers, but there are wrong approaches. And the wrong approach is to not discuss these things at all. Having children costs between $250,000 and $500,000 to raise a child to age 18, and that's before college. These numbers should factor into your decisions about when and whether to have children. Plan for these costs with your eyes open about the financial commitment you're making. Job loss can happen to anyone, often without warning. Your emergency fund needs to cover you for your job search. The rule of thumb is about 1 month of searching for every $10,000 in salary you're seeking. Retirement arrives faster than anyone expects. Every year, you delay saving costs more than just that year's contributions. Now I want to address the role of community in financial success. Your financial behaviors are influenced by the people around you. If your closest friends are deep in consumer debt, buying things they can't afford, you'll feel constant pressure to do the same. Build relationships with people who share your financial values. Find communities where people discuss money openly. Question everything you hear about money. Test financial advice against the principles we've discussed. Does it create a gap between income and expenses? Does it harness compound growth? Let me share one more critical concept: the difference between looking wealthy and being wealthy. American culture is obsessed with the appearance of wealth. Big houses, nice cars, designer clothes. The entire economy is designed to get you to display wealth you don't actually have, financed by debt that keeps you trapped. But people who actually build lasting wealth often look nothing like the stereotypes. They drive reliable cars, not luxury vehicles. They live in homes well below what the bank approved them for. True wealth is invisible. It's the investments quietly compounding. It's the emergency fund that lets you sleep at night. Stop trying to look wealthy. Focus on becoming wealthy. This brings me to my final thought, and it's perhaps the most important thing I'll say. Financial literacy isn't about money. It's about time. Money is just stored time. When you work, you exchange time for money. When you save and invest, you're storing that time for later use. Every dollar you waste is time you'll never get back. Every dollar you save is future time you're preserving for yourself. Your time on this earth is finite. How much of it do you want to spend working because you have to versus working because you want to? You now have knowledge that most people don't receive until they've wasted decades making expensive mistakes. I genuinely hope you choose action. I've seen the transformation in people who go from financial chaos to financial clarity, the confidence, the peace, the options. That's available to you too, starting with whatever action you take when this video ends. If this helped you, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Share this with someone who needs it. Drop a comment telling me the single most valuable thing you learned today. I read every comment. Your financial education started today. Where it goes from here is up to you. I'll see you in the next one.